So throughout last week and this week on Tactical Trafford, we have been talking about the midfield positions at Manchester United and definitely the players that is going to suit this midfield partnership of Manchester United that comprises of Kobbie Mainoo and Bruno Fernandes. So we have been trying to look for the adequate pair that is going to really make them to gel, just like other midfield combinations in the Premier League and also in Europe at large. So we have been able to talk about Sandro Tonali yesterday because, of course, we have splitted the midfield category of Manchester United into two. The enhancers, which are going to enhance Kobbie Mainoo and Bruno Fernandes, and also the midfield targets that can also be able to max the weaknesses of Bruno Fernandes and Kobbie Mainoo, which is definitely without the ball. So yesterday we have been able to talk about one of the players that can max the weaknesses of Bruno Fernandes and Kobbie Mainoo, which is Sandro Tonali. So today we are going to be talking about Aurélien Tchouaméni because, of course, reports are coming from Fabrizio Romano that Real Madrid, both in private and in public, has stated that they want to keep Tchouaméni for this summer. So definitely, even though we know that Manchester United is interested in the player, Real Madrid wants to keep him, but we are going to discuss his characteristics in a way and try to analyze how he's going to help Manchester United in different phases. So, of course, if you're talking about how a midfielder is going to help Manchester United, we have to start from the first phase. And so if you are starting from the first phase, of course, you want to talk about how he can be press resistant, how he can receive the ball from the goalkeeper and play through difficult situations. Because, of course, in Premier League recently, almost all the teams plays in the man-to-man press and they play in a very high intensity. So, of course, being very good as a midfielder in the first phase is really important for what Carrick is going to build next season. So, of course, in terms of the first phase, Tchouaméni is not the best, he's not a specialist, he's not a press-resistant player that can be able to receive the ball with his back to goal when he's being pressed man-to-man or under high intensity. But that doesn't mean that Tchouaméni is completely useless in the first phase. Tchouaméni is a sort of number 6 that actually excels or be efficient in the first phase when his midfielder, let me say in this case, Kobbie Mainoo drops deep to receive that ball and then try to give him and then he gives to the next man. But him receiving the ball by himself, constantly under high pressure and constantly under high intensity or a man-to-man press, he's definitely going to fidget a bit because, of course, you could see that there were moments where he was giving the ball from the back and you could see presses and you could see that he's going to panic a little bit. And this is something that is not entirely an upgrade to Casemiro because, of course, this is the kind of player that Casemiro has been for Manchester United this season. He's not the best press-resistant player, so one of the ways he tries to beat this man-to-man press and high intensity in the Premier League is try to give those one-time passes that is going to split the presses of opposition. So in terms of the first phase, Tchouaméni is not entirely useless. I'm not saying that he can't receive the ball with his back to goal, but he's not a specialist in it. It's not something he does regularly for Real Madrid. He's a sort of player that feels very comfortable to receive the ball without any form of pressure. When there's no press, when there's no high intensity, of course, he can receive the ball with his back to goal. He can play through tight spaces. He can give those line-breaking passes or long passes from the middle of the park. So another component I like about the control of Aurélien Tchouaméni is that he knows how to maximize his upper body. He's that kind of player that uses his upper body like Kobbie Mainoo. He knows how to use his upper body to get past players or to try to prevent the ball from being nicked from him. But in terms of what we need right now in the first phase, I don't think Tchouaméni is a complete upgrade. So let's move a little bit up the pitch with Aurélien Tchouaméni and let's talk about his characteristics in the second phase. I think in the second phase, that is where his whole strength surfaces because he's an expertise in the second phase. Real Madrid is a team that is very big in Europe and in La Liga. So most of the times, Real Madrid are usually in control of position. They are usually in the second phase. They usually start playing from the second phase. So this is where you're going to see the real potential of Tchouaméni because, of course, he's going to absolutely dictate the play. He's going to hold possession. He's going to always dominate like how Rodri Hernandez dominates and control the play. Tchouaméni is a tempo setter. He likes to control the rhythm of the ball. He likes to detect how his team is going to play, and it's also that sort of player that can be able to form a back three from deep and try to dominate. And there are players that are number 8, but because of their good defensively and because they have a very good passing range, just like a Matheus Fernandes, they can be able to play in the number 6 position. But Tchouaméni's original position is the number 6. He's the natural number 6, and we have not had this kind of player for a very long time. We have not had this profile at Manchester United for a very long time, in a player that is a natural number 6. And of course, having a player like Tchouaméni that is going to detect position, that is going to help in control, that is going to help to set the tempo of how Manchester United is going to play in games. It is is really going to be crucial. And one thing I like about the control of Tchouameni is that majority of the times, instead of having numerous touches and most of the time be getting dispossessed, he's not a player that gets dispossessed more often, because sometimes with 2 touches he can just give the ball. So instead of holding the ball, trying to get numerous options, he's a player that can just, with just two touches, he can be able to move the play to another phase. And one thing I also like about Tchouameni is his long passing range. His long passing range is so underrated, because for me, he passes like Paul Pogba. He has this unbelievable passing range, and you could see in the La Liga numerous times he finds Vinicius Junior, Kylian Mbappe with those long passes. And just imagine Tchouameni constantly passing in behind to Brian Mbeumo, Matheus Cunha, Benjamin Sesko, and maybe another forward that we are going to be getting. So of course, it's going to be really deadly for the opposition teams, because this season in La Liga he has a long pass accuracy of 61.7%, and he also has a pass accuracy of 91.5%. That tells you that he's a player that likes to hold possession, he likes to retain possession. And this actually aligns with the news that broke out some months back that Michael Carrick wants to play a different system for Manchester United next season. He wants to play more of a possession-based football instead of just always cantering and always trying to play in the transition phase. Michael Carrick wants to play a different kind of football next season. And from the players he's going for recently, you definitely have to agree that he wants to play that kind of football. And also, if you look at the metrics of Tchouameni from the scout lab, you're going to find out that most of his passes are usually sideways passes. He usually likes to pass to the flank or just sideways, like to keep it simple. But that does not mean that he can't play centrally. Of course, he can play centrally, but on occasions. But that is something that, of course, he can be able to improve on, because in terms of the passing of Tchouameni, there is no issues at all. I think the only slight issues is that most of the times his choices of passes are usually not accurate or usually not supposed to be the right option. But of course, he has a lot to improve on. But in terms of the second phase, Tchouameni is definitely a specialist, and he's that player that can be able to use one pass to go into the third phase. He's that player that can be able to constantly create chances in behind. He's that player that can be able to spray a lot of passes for more than 90 minutes in a game. He's that player that can be able to create lots of final third passes that is going to help to split the opposition defenses. So in terms of the second phase, and in terms of keeping possession, in terms of dominating the play, trying to keep possession, trying to play sideways, trying to keep it simple, trying to make Manchester United to simply burst into the final phase of the play, Tchouameni is that perfect player for Manchester United. Finally, if you're talking about how Tchouameni can be able to help Manchester United in terms of aerial duels, he's very good in aerial duels. He's very dominant at the middle of the park. He's that player that can be able to also cover pocket spaces. He's that player that doesn't necessarily need to have the recovery pace of a kind of Carlos Baleba or Matheus Fernandes. He doesn't need to be an N'Golo Kante. He's that player that has a very strong positional awareness. So of course, in moments in games, he knows where to be to just nick the ball off the opposition attackers and then try to create a transitional play. So in terms of covering those wide spaces, being very good most of the times in winning the ball back in recoveries, and try to be very dominant in aerial duels, of course Tchouameni can be able to replace Casemiro. But of course, he's not a player that has this passing range of Casemiro, because most of the time Casemiro sees passes that we don't see. Tchouameni has not really gotten to that level, but of course, if you're looking at his metrics, you're going to find out that he has a very good passing range, and of course, he's going to improve in the future. So in terms of being very similar to Casemiro, of course, Tchouameni is, but of course, in terms of goal scoring and so many other characteristics, Casemiro just edges him. So I want you guys to give me your thoughts in the comment section on if you feel Aurélien Tchouaméni is going to be the right option for Manchester United, and if Manchester United should be able to test the waters with Real Madrid. I want you guys to like, to share, to subscribe to Tactical Trafford. See you guys in my next video.